All right. So Dr. Ponzio, you think we should get started? Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well,
I can let people in as you welcome everyone.
Okay. Excellent. As we said to all who have joined, it is so wonderful to see your faces. We have lots of screens of people joining us today. Just in terms of making this work for everyone on the call, do make sure that you are muted. We invite you to use the chat liberally. I will be monitoring the chat and feeding any of those questions to our head chef, Dr. Ponzio. So my name is Regina Rosie Mitchell. I am the Director of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and I lead a fantastic colleagues in our Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, where we have made it our goal to have at least one community event each month that inspires joy, making, and creativity of any sort. And so welcome to our December event. It is so wonderful to have you here. And I'm going to kick us off by introducing two of my fantastic colleagues. We have Mr. Hueso, who is our media studio specialist, who will be managing everything behind the scenes. They're dressed with a very interesting and super fun Zoom costume. And then we have our head cookie chef, Dr. Allison Ponzio, who is going to be leading us in some fabulous, like we said, some very innovative new ways to decorate cookies. So Dr. Ponzio, take it away.
Well, thank you, Ms. Rosie Mitchell. I'm so excited to be coming to you live from my kitchen, which is also my laundry room, and where we do a lot of our caffeination via coffee. So got a lot happening. So today we have 5 cookies that we're going to be learning, and they're all pretty simple. They don't take a ton of skill, really. I wouldn't call myself like an expert cookie maker. I would say I'm a novice cookie maker. My family is Italian, and so Christmas cookies are always a highlight of our Christmas celebration. I know that for many families during the wintertime, this is a Hallmark staple, something to do with the family. So thank you guys for joining us and spending your afternoon. So we're going to get going with our prep first. And so first, I want everybody to get their workspaces ready. So Mr. Hueso, if we can go to the slides, we're going to start to make sure we have all our ingredients ready to go. So you're going to need a few ingredients to start. If you received a kit from us, from Marlboro, you already have all of this stuff. If you didn't get a cookie kit or you're joining us, you signed up a little bit later, these are the ingredients we're going to start with. So we'll go over them. We're not going to start making anything yet. I just want to make sure you guys have everything ready. So the first thing is Confectioners Sugar. It is sugar, like granulated sugar, but it is much, much finer, and it's ideal for the type of icing that we're going to be making today, which is called royal icing. Now, you also received in your kit this like kind of off-white powder in a little container. It is already pre-measured. It's what's called meringue powder, and it's basically a shelf-stable version of an egg white. And what that's going to do is help our icing get really glossy and help it harden. So it's kind of an essential ingredient, I think. You can frost cookies with like a buttercream or another kind of frosting. But if you want really detailed frosting, royal icing is kind of the way to go. So that's what we're going to be making today. I also want you to have handy a little bit of water. We're not going to need that much, just a couple tablespoons. So I have my little water thing kind of ready to go.
Dr. Ponzio, a few questions about the meringue powder. So one question, is there dairy in it?
So there's no dairy in meringue powder, but it is made from egg. So if you're allergic to eggs, you can skip it. If it didn't come in your kit, it's totally fine. We can still make the icing with confectioners sugar and with food coloring.
Excellent. And then, one person does have egg whites. Do they plan on using those, or should they just confectioners sugar and water?
So that's an interesting question. So egg white powder is not the same as meringue powder. So I would skip that for this because it won't really add the viscosity that we're kind of looking for, you can just go ahead and use the confectioner sugar in the water, and that should be fine. We're going to be building the recipe together, and so I'll let you know how much meringue powder we're going to need when we get there. But just so you know, in the container, it's 2 tablespoons. So if you're, no egg white necessary, just confection sugar and water is also going to be fine. Okay, and then gel food coloring. So if you received a kit from us, you got something that looks like this. It's like a little, this is a different brand than I think you guys have, but they're these little gel bottles. And I really like this kind of coloring because it's super thick. So it doesn't add moisture to your icing, because if you put too much water, it will get a lot thinner. So this is always nice to have. It's very jelly, as we'll see in a minute. It's also super pigmented, so you don't need a whole lot of it. Okay, and then last is sprinkles. So either you could have got some on your own, or you could pick them up from the store, but we just want to have some sprinkles handy. All right, Mr. Hueso, next slide. Let's talk about equipment. So you want to have a few bowls, a big bowl to make the icing in, and then a couple smaller bowls. We're going to section the icing off into these little bowls and then dye it a different color. So if you're interested in doing a colored icing, have a couple bowls handy. I'm going to be making our icing today with my KitchenAid, but you can also use a hand mixer, and you can also use a whisk. Now, if you have a whisk, you're going to have to like really give it some going. So just prepare that it might take a little bit longer to get going, but you will be able to achieve the icing with a whisk. But if you have a hand mixer or a KitchenAid, it's worth it to get it out. You should have also received a piping tip. I think most of you did. If you don't have one, it's not essential, but I wanted to show you what they look like. Now, depending on how professional you want to get, let's see, this is the piping tip, and it's got a little teeny tiny hole. You should use it if you have one. It's not essential, because I'm going to show you how to make a piping tip with a little bit of tape. Or you could just not have a piping tip. That's also fine too. But these are nice for getting like really clean lines if you want to do like a very detailed cookie. Now, along with the piping tip, you're going to have piping bags. So those are these right here. Now, these are interesting because they're kind of like a trash bag. So you have to separate it at the top. And then it kind of is a little bag, and you can, it fits about your hand size. And we're going to be using these momentarily. Along with the piping bag, you want to have a tall cup handy, just like some sort of a drinking glass. Anything that's like tall like this would work, a vase, whatever is fine. The piping bags, you need as many as you want icing colors. So if you just want white, you only need one. If you don't have any piping bags, you can achieve the same thing with like a Ziploc bag, and just follow along and then snip the tip, same kind of deal. These are just a little bit more narrow, so it's easier to contain the icing. To close off our piping bags, we're going to use a rubber band. To achieve one of our designs, we're going to need a toothpick. So I couldn't find any toothpicks around my house. So this is actually an olive pick for, I think, a cocktail. But something like this would be fine, a cake tester. If you are kind of type A like me, you like to put sprinkles on with tweezers. So I have some tweezers handy. They're a non-essential. And then just a nice place to lay your cookies afterwards. I have a rack set up on my stove, but certainly you can use your countertop, what have you, just somewhere that if the icing got there, it wouldn't stain it, because it is highly pigmented and you want to avoid staining. All right, Mr. Hueso, next slide.
Excellent. And we've gotten a few requests, I think. Can we maybe turn down the music or turn off the music, Mr. Hueso? I think just so that we can all be following.
Sure, just give me 1 second here.
Direction. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And so the first thing we're going to do is prepare the icing. So I'm actually noticing, Mr. Huezo, can you take the slides down 1 second? Because we're going to have to adjust those ingredients 1 second on the right. And so I'll walk everybody through as we do this. So we're going to need confectioner's sugar to start. And what I want you to do is to measure out 2 2/3 cups of this confectioner's sugar. And the way you're going to do that is with a measuring cup. And so all you're going to do is fill the confectioner's sugar in the cup and then use like something straight, either your finger or a knife, to kind of scrape it off. And so you're going to start with 2 2/3 cup of powdered sugar. Now, if you have the box, the like 16-ounce box of powdered sugar, that's most of the box, but not all the box. I've adjusted the recipe so you could make this with like basically the box of icing. The ratio of meringue powder to confectioner's sugar isn't perfect for just the box of icing. And I'll show you in a minute why it's a good idea to have a little extra confectioner's sugar, not just dump the whole box in. Basically, the icing can be a little temperamental, and so you want to make sure you have a good ratio of water to sugar to start. So yeah, the box of confectioner's sugar, that's the 16-ounce box, it's 3.5 cups of powdered sugar because of like the volume and sort of like the airiness of the powdered sugar. So go ahead and measure that out. That's where you're going to start. So that's 2 2/3 cup again. And then you can go ahead and put that in your mixer or the bowl, wherever you're going to be making your icing. And then you're also going to add your meringue powder. So if you've got a kit, this has already been pre-measured for you. If you are measuring it now, it's 2 tablespoons of meringue powder. I feel like I'm Rachel Ray, you guys. This is like a whole deal. So I've just combined them in my bowl. And then you're going to put this in your stand mixer or your whatever mixer it is you're using. If you're making your icing in a bowl with a whisk, choose a slightly bigger bowl than what I have here, because if you start to do this now, it's going to be like a whole like mess. And I'm not going to do the frosting part on camera because it'll be too loud for everybody. We're actually going to cut to a cookie fact momentarily, but I want to walk you through what it is we're going for. So we're going to put this in our mixer and we're going to add water to it a tablespoon at a time. And it's going to depend on like where you are, what the like humidity is, and where you're making your frosting, but you want it this sort of thick texture that's hard to describe. So I've cut some video clips together, or I haven't. Mr. Huezo did, because he's way better at this than me. So Mr. Huezo, will you play the little video of how thick the icing should be?
Got it. 1 second.
Basically, you're going to put the sugar, the meringue powder in the mixer. You're going to let the meringue powder and the powdered sugar go. Yep, it's the whole container. It's 2 tablespoons. You're going to let the mixer or the whisk lighten up that sugar for you. And then tablespoon at a time, you're going to add water until it looks like this. And while everybody sort of gets their icing together, we can just leave this video here so you can see the consistency. But basically, it's like a very thick, kind of gluey consistency. So I'm seeing a couple questions. I want to raise hand. Let's see, Miss Elizabeth, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, wait, I might just be missing the point here, but is it 4 cups of sugar and 3 tablespoons like it says on the screen? Or I felt like it was something different.
If you are making this like without a kit, that is the recipe. I scaled it down so that you could only need the like 1 box in your kit. So Mr. Huezo, will you just change that real quick to 2 2/3 cup and 2 tablespoons real quick on the slide?
Sure. 1 second. 2 2/3.
Then nobody will be confused. Yeah, it's 2 2/3 cup of powdered sugar and 2 tablespoons of meringue powder. And then
how much meringue powder? I'm sorry.
Take off the 2 tablespoons.
2 tablespoons. Okay.
Yeah, and then the water is just going to be a couple tablespoons, added a tablespoon at a time. And we'll get that recipe back up 1 second.
Yeah, 1 second.
So now the reason why we're not just dumping the whole box of confectioner sugar into the mixer is because you want to have a little extra confectioner sugar just in case you add a little too much water, so that you can make it the right consistency. Typically, when you do frosted cookies like this, you make two kinds of icing, one that's a little thicker, one that's a little thinner, but to make it easy, we're just doing one icing today. So in the mixer, you should have your powdered sugar, your meringue powder, and then let the mixer go for like 30 seconds or so. Let it make that powdered sugar really airy, and then a tablespoon at a time, you're gonna add water until it looks like this consistency. When you like put a spoon up or put the whisk up, it should puddle really nicely, very thickly. It shouldn't be like, so the box is 3.5 cups. So half plus a third, you should leave out of the box. Just about a half a cup's probably fine.
What does the box of the sugar look like? Because I don't think I have it in my.
It's, I don't have one here, but it's a box about this big. If you're coming to us from the admissions office, I don't know if it's in your box.
My mom emptied out like all the stuff and I don't have it here. So.
Oh no. Do you have any in your pantry?
I'm gonna check.
Yeah, go check. All right, friends. So we're gonna cut over to a cookie fact really fast so I can get my icing going so that it's not so loud for you. And then if you have any questions, we will move on from there.
All right, it's cookie fact time. Joaquin, did you know that people leave cookies for Santa Claus? Yeah. Do you know that they started doing that in the Great Depression because parents wanted to encourage children to share and be charitable during a time of economic depression and need? The tradition stuck.
Oh.
Are you going to leave cookies for Santa?
Yes. Yes. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now you know.
I think we do another cookie fact in the meantime.
It's cookie fact time. Hey, Rafa, did you know the cookies that the Cookie Monster eats are actually just painted rice cakes? Poor Cookie Monster.
Okay, so we're getting a few requests to put the recipe back up if possible.
Absolutely.
There is also a great tip for anyone who doesn't have the powdered sugar or the confectioner's sugar. You can put it regular sugar in the blender to make it powdered. Okay, that sounds great.
How much water do we end up putting so that it's not like a bowl of powder anymore?
So it's going to be about 5 to 10. I would start with 5 and then add from there. Today, this icing that I just made was like 5.5 tablespoons. And so you can see this is sort of the consistency it's going to be. This is like I guess an ASMR version of CEI activities. Yeah, so this is going to be our icing.
It looks like glue, Elmer's glue. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a little.
Mine looks like dried glue. Mine just looks like dry glue because I haven't put enough water. It needs more water, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say definitely don't want dried glue. We want a little bit more liquidy than that. Okay. All right, so when you get to this point, you're going to sort of assess how much icing you have. And at this point, you want to decide how much of other colors you want. So I'm going to be making 2 additional colors today in addition to my white. So I'm going to leave about half my icing in this bowl for now. And then I'm going to put about 1/4 in each little bowl. And then I'm going to add my food coloring. Okay. We've got 1/4, 1/4. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so I have these 2 little bowls of royal icing. Now, these are the colors I'm going to be using. There are 2 different shades of blue because I'm going to be making some snowflake cookies today. And I'm going to start with about 2 drops of each color. Now, I like things really pigmented. If you like things a little bit more pastel, you're going to want to add just a little bit and then go from there. Let me put these here so I don't forget which is which. It is very, very pigmented, so you just want to be careful that you don't add too much color because you can always add, but you can't take away. So this is going to be one of my blues. It's very soothing to do this. And you want to mix it so that all the blue or all the coloring is incorporated and you don't see any more streaks. Because if you don't incorporate it now, you're going to end up with streaky cookies. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then I have another little spatula. I'm going to get this one going. And they're starting to look a little bit like they're the same color, even though I used 2 different dyes. I think I'm going to add a little bit of.
So we lost you about a minute ago, Dr. Ponzio, as you were describing what to do with the icing and the bags and the glass situation.
Okay, so while I figure this out, bag, tip. Glass.
You froze for me.
Just give it a second. You're
Okay.
all relying on the internet here. We're at the mercy of the internet. It's okay. She'll come back here in a sec.
I like your Zoom costume thing.
Thank you. Hold on a second. We'll get her back here in a sec.
Back, just keep. I'm still working.
I'll play another cookie fact
Perfect.
till she comes back.
I think the internet's like being evil today.
Yeah, I think Google had issues earlier today too, so it happens.
All right, it's cookie fact time. Joaquin, where do you cook your cookies? Where do we put the cookies?
In the oven.
In the oven, that's right. And did you know that cookies were originally made to test oven temperature? So before they had thermometers, cooks would take a little bit of cake batter and bake it as a means of gauging whether the oven was ready or not.
Oh.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, cool.
All right, let's see if we can figure out the status here.
Am I back?
You
Yeah.
are back.
Yeah, you're back.
Thank you, Zoom gods. Okay, so where were we? We have our pastry bag. We have our tip at the bottom. There we go. We got our tip. Don't worry about this yet. We're going to worry about the very tip of this in a minute. We are going to take our cup, pastry bag over cup. And then we're gonna take our white icing and we are going to move these out of the way. See if I can do this without making a mess. We're gonna fill our bag. Very gently and very slowly, because this is like a huge mess in the making. Okay, so we've got just about all of our icing in there. Okay, now you're gonna repeat this process for your other icings. Before you do that, you're gonna fold the bag over itself. You're gonna like grab the top of it, twist it closed, and like really twist it good. And then you're going to kind of like secure the end, fold it over. Grab a rubber band and secure it like really, really well. It's gonna look like this when you're all done. So we've got our white icing in the bag. This one I'm gonna do a tip. Now, let's say you don't have, so the tip goes in the bag first. So the tip's just gonna sit inside of the bag at the bottom. But let's say you don't have a tip. You can take your cup, your bag, same deal. Same deal as before. So we've got our cup, our pastry bag folded over inside, the tips down here, and there's nothing in it this time, and I'm gonna show you how to like make a fake little pastry tip. And you're gonna pour your icing in the bag. All right.
Can't wait to see you decorate.
Same as
these cookies.
before. Show you again. Gonna flip the bag out. You're gonna like get all the icing down towards the bottom. And remember, this one's gonna be less because it's only 1/4 of our icing batch. Push it all down. Twist. Oh, and rubber band. So I just saw in the chat, can you show us? I can show it up to the big camera, this next one, if you can't see it in the document camera. But yeah, the document camera should be pointing right towards the frosting. And then we secure around and around and around and around and around and around with just a little rubber band. And that's gonna keep the icing from like popping out. So it looks like this. Now, I recommend the fold over here because then your icing isn't gonna squirt out on you. That's what you want to avoid, is not squirting out. Now, you do not cut the tip yet. You do not cut the tip. You're gonna hold on to it until we start decorating. Okay, so how do you attach the tip to the bag? If you have a tip, all you're gonna do is drop it to the bottom of the bag and it's just gonna sit down here where the point is. I saw that question. Yes, the tip should go inside the bag. Okay, so last time we got cup, and you guys can check it out in the document camera. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. Tip down inside the bag. Fold it over. our last color. This part's just a teens messy. Okay. I need my husband's sous chef to come do my dishes. Ooh. Okay. All right, so you're gonna squeeze it down just like this. Twist. Fold it over. Oh, I was kidding about the sous chef. Cut the tip of the bag if you have 4 participants. Yeah, you can cut the tip of the bag, which I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. Now, if you don't have a pastry tip or something like that, there's 2 things you can do after the fact. This is also for the people who maybe forgot to put their pastry tip in first. So what you can do, so the first thing you can do is nothing. You can leave it like it is, and eventually we're gonna cut the tip right there. And as long as you make the cut small enough, it should be totally fine. But if you're worried you might cut too much, or it's like kind of scary to cut it, you can fold some tape over the tip. And when we do cut it, it's gonna act a little stronger here, like a pastry tip. Now, if your icing is a little runny, don't freak out yet. It could be that when you get it all together, that it hardens a little bit more. If it's like super runny, you can go back and add a little bit of powdered sugar, but it's gonna be like, you know, it's wet still. Kind of gluey texture, as you can see here. Okay, so these are your 3 icings, or my 3 icings. You might have just 1 color, you might have 3 colors, whatever suits your fancy.
And I'm just continuing to monitor the chat. We know this is fast, but we are gonna keep it moving along so we can get into some actual decorating techniques. Just do the best you can.
All right, friends. So I think we're ready to decorate our first cookie. So Mr. Hueso, will you show us our cookie number 1 that we're going to be making today?
Sure thing. 1 second.
And I'm going to block the sun here in my kitchen. Okay, so cookie number 1 is probably our fanciest looking cookie, but it's actually the easiest to do. And it is called a marbled dip cookie. Now, marble is very on trend right now. Everybody loves a good, like, I see it marble all the time, the marble laptop case, the phone case, etc. So this is the first cookie we're gonna make. And if any of this like piping stuff scared you, this is the cookie you wanna make because it's high impact, but very, very easy to make. So Mr. Hueso, you can cut the slide for now, I think. So
You got it.
I'm going to find my scissors, step 1. And finally, I'm going to cut the tip of my pastry bag. And you want to make sure that you keep like a handle on this little piece of plastic so it doesn't end up in your cookies. So you are going to have, grab your like low bowl. You can also use the bowl that you made the white icing in if you want to do that, if you don't want to wash another bowl. And what I'm going to do is pipe like puddles of white icing. And while I pipe this white icing, I'm just gonna try to fill my bowl. You could also use your remaining icing if you have any from your bowl. I'm just gonna get that going. You just wanna do like a nice big puddle of white icing.
How many designs will we be doing?
Hopefully 5, but we'll see how many we get to. Okay. So we're gonna do our little pile of white. Okay. So I'm kind of satisfied with the amount of white I have. My bowl's kind of awkward, so I'm gonna get this frosting off the side and sort of push it down into the middle here. Okay. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some of my blue. Again, I'm gonna cut the tips. Now, when you cut the tips, you don't wanna cut all that much off. So I don't know if you can tell how much I've cut off, but it's really not that much at all. It was like about here, like, I don't know, that much for finger reference. And what you're gonna do is just artfully add your color. Now, you can kind of do in whatever pattern sort of like suits you. Perfection is not required at this stage because this is the easiest cookie we're gonna do.
Is it being done in a
And then you're gonna take your toothpick and you're gonna do some art. You're gonna move some stuff around here. When you're satisfied with your swirl, this is when we're gonna grab our first cookie. So you can see my cookie here. What I'm gonna do is dip. Kind of dip, dip, dip. And then I'm gonna lift and shake off my icing. You can also use your toothpick at this point to like scrape off any extra. Wiggle, 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 and there we go. So like I said, this is a high impact cookie and it is so easy because it's so pretty and it's all striped and amazing and you literally did nothing but dip it in. So watch me do it again. I'm gonna do it this time with a snowman because he looks like he could use a little bit of color. So we're gonna take our cookie, we're gonna dip, maybe do a little zhuzh, lift. We're gonna like get off some of the excess icing. And there you go. Now, if you, like me, had a little, like you didn't touch it all the way down to the icing, you can re-dip. There you go. Marble cookies. All right. How are we doing so far? Do we have any questions about the marble cookie? No, we're doing good.
How much?
All right.
I have a question. How much pressure do you want to put, like when you dip it?
Oh, good question. So you want to press it just to the surface of the frosting. You don't want to like dip it too deep because otherwise the frosting will get kind of all over the place. I'll show you one more. And what I like about this cookie too is that you can do it a whole bunch of times and every time it kind of gets like a different pattern. And then you can kind of move it around a little. Move it, take some of it off, put a little over here. There you go. High impact. Okay. Let's move on to cookie 2. I know we're moving a little bit quickly, but my goal is to show you all the different cookies and then you can spend some more time after we're done today making whatever kind of design you would like. So Mr. Hueso, can you show us cookie number 2?
Absolutely.
Okay, so cookie number 2 is the very traditional, like, so for whoever said gingerbread earlier, you actually made that into a gingerbread person. This is like the iconic gingerbread looking situation. So I have 2 cookies here I'm gonna do to show you how to do this. And I'm gonna use my white icing because I kind of like that classic look. And basically what you're gonna do is pipe a design onto your cookie. And this is, for me, what I think is like actually the hardest decorating to do, because it relies a lot on a very steady hand. So what you can do is, like me, I'm gonna practice real quick, and I'm just gonna pipe some lines right onto my surface here, because it's preparing me to do something a little bit more detailed. And then when I feel ready, I'm just gonna kind of slowly drag out my design. And then, you know, we got an eye, maybe, eye. Cool. And then, you know, like, let's say you want to add some sprinkles, some pizzazz, right? Maybe my friend here needs a little jazz. Simple. Now, this is a very simple cookie to do because the cutter is kind of like already forming a shape. Let's talk about something a little bit harder, like this snowflake. So if you're trying to do something symmetrical, always first find the center of the cookie and give yourself like a little dot. That's like the best way to start. Now you want to try to think about your design carefully before you execute it, but like don't take it too seriously, right? It's frosting and cookies. It's meant to be fun. So why don't I'm gonna do like a piped line out to the edge, out to the edge. And I'm taking my time, you know, I'm going slow. And one thing you may find that's easier is, instead of trying to move your piping, try to move the cookie. I actually find that to be easier, is like leaving my hand stable and moving the cookie underneath it.
What I've been doing. I know, not good.
Doing this. We're just gonna go slow. Now you can get as detailed as you want with this. You can do like maybe some little V's. Now we're getting like real detailed. And you just want to do kind of like a firm pressure, not too much. If you feel like the icing's not coming out, you might have a clog. You can check that. And then we just
really good.
Move it around. I always find when I think about it too much, I make an uglier cookie. All right, now let's say we want a little bit of color, right? So like maybe a little zhuzh, maybe a little zhuzh, 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 right? Up to you, however it is you want to do. Now with something like this, if you want to decorate it, you want to do that while the cookie, the icing is still wet. So like I have these like fun big sprinkles, so you could do something like that. And also at this stage, you could do something like these little, this is like a sanding sugar kind of sprinkle. I don't know if you guys can really see it. But if you wanted to do a little bit of that, you sprinkle, sprinkle. And then there you go. Super festive, super fun.
You look great.
Okay, he looks a little boring now. Maybe we'll give him like a little. Oh, fatal flaw, friends. Don't do as I do. If you want to add sprinkles, make sure you add them right away, because see how it's already dried? So make sure you pipe and then decorate. Okay. There we go. Look at our piped little cookies. All right, Mr. Hueso, bring on cookie 3.
Cookie 3 coming up. Oops, that is 2 coming up.
All right, cookie 3. This is a lot easier than it looks, and it's a lot of fun too. So I'm gonna grab one of my cookies. This is called a flood design cookie. And so basically what we're gonna do is, as you can see in the slide pictures, we're gonna make like a large surface area of frosting, but we don't just like take a knife or whatever and spread it out. We're gonna be a little bit more technical about it. So we're gonna achieve that with a border and then filling the inside with frosting. Now, if you have done cookies before, you may have heard about border icing and flood icing. Border icing's a little thicker, flood icing's a little thinner. And you can do that, and it's very successful. I don't have the patience for 2 kinds of icing. I barely have the patience for the colors, but I love them so much, so I am patient for it. But you can certainly achieve the same thing with like a medium consistency icing, which is what we have today. So let's take a look at our cookie. We're gonna first do a border. And again, we're applying the same pressure as we did earlier when we did our pipe design, but this is even more low key, because if you make a mistake, you can just backtrack. Like, let's say, like I did this and you're like, oh no, like I didn't go all the way to the edge. I'm so disappointed. Well, watch this. We just extend out our icing, right? So you can fix it very, very easily. So these for me are a lot less stress than the other ones. So I'm just gonna keep going, and I'm gonna sort of outline my cookie. Okay. Now comes the fun part. Flood the cookie. You want to cover like a good amount of the surface area, but you don't have to be detailed about it. And then we're going to take our toothpick and we're going to push the icing around. And that's how you achieve that like really solid looking mass of icing. You just fill it in, fill it in. And if you find you're like, oh, I wish I had more icing, voila, more icing, right? Add a little more. And then use your toothpick to fill in the gaps. It's very cathartic, this part. It feels kind of like those coloring books, advanced coloring books. And we fill it in until we're happy with it.
Excuse me, Dr. Ponzio.
Yeah.
I just have a question. So my frosting is a bit runny, and I was just wondering if there's something I should do about that.
So if it's super runny and you're like, oh my gosh, this just isn't working for me, you can add more powdered sugar to it, like squeeze it out of the piping bag and add more confectioner's sugar. If you're already like, you got it in the bag and you're ready to go, I wouldn't worry about it so much, because worst case scenario, you could dump it all back in the pot and do something like this. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you want to try piping it, you probably still will be able to. You just don't want to go too close to the border, because then you're risking like it coming over the edge.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And then, because we want to make sure to get our sprinkles on before it starts drying, I'm just going to do a little sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. And there we go. Now, I prepared some of one of these in advance for another technique I'm going to show you later. So make sure you do a flooded cookie or a piped and flooded cookie, and hold on to one of them, because we're going to use it in an advanced technique. It's our last cookie. So this is the one I prepared in advance, and you can see that like it's kind of hardened already. So I'm going to put this one aside for cookie number 5. Okay, so if you're keeping track, we've made marble cookie. We've made piped cookie. And we've made flooded cookie. So Mr. Hueza, why don't you show us cookie 4?
Absolutely. Here we go.
All right. We have our flooded design. Oh, let me move the chat. Flooded design with extra color. So this is the same as before. We're gonna switch my shape up for you guys. So we're gonna start with our cookie. And I actually prepared additional colors in advance because I had a little bit of free time this afternoon. So I'm gonna switch my icing color really fast. And I'm gonna do some Marlboro purple. Okay, and same as before, you're gonna outline your cookie. Again, sometimes it's easier to move the cookie than it is to move the piping bag. You just want to work around. Okay, so I've got my outline. I'm gonna flood. I'm gonna take my toothpick, work my icing around, fill in all my holes. Okay, now once you've got your flooded cookie all ready to go, you're gonna take an icing color that's like different than your base. So I'm gonna use white, and I'm gonna start with just some little dots. One in like each corner of this snowflake. And then I'm gonna take my toothpick and I'm gonna drag through my design. And what that's gonna do, and I'm gonna wipe my toothpick off every time to keep it kind of clean. What I'm gonna do is make a heart out of all these. And just work your way around. You don't want to go too deep. It's kind of what I did there. I went a little too deep. It should fill itself in, but you want to just kind of drag through the icing, and it's going to make this kind of heart shape. Now, if hearts aren't your thing, you can also do lines. So I'm going to just really quickly pipe and flood another cookie. Again, my handy dandy toothpick. I'm gonna fill it in.
Not right now, Mommy.
And so if you want to do lines, you can just pipe them on. Frosting got a little away from me. Pro tip, you can lift off icing sometimes with your toothpick.
That's a pro tip right there.
We're just gonna cover it up. There are no mistakes.
What?
Now we're gonna do something
Happy
cool.
accidents.
Happy
Won't come out.
drag
You know how runny it is.
in alternating directions. And what that's gonna do is like another kind of like marble technique.
Feels very fancy to me, Dr. Ponzio, but I love
That's
it.
good.
Looks like
Kind of a healthy type thing. Now, the very last technique I'm going to show you, I know we're running out of time. 3:58 can you show us the slide, Mr. Hueso?
Yes, absolutely.
So we can show the participants what it should look like. So this is our raised icing design. Now I'm putting this one last because it requires you to have a flooded, dried cookie. So this one has kind of been hanging out for about an hour or so in my kitchen. And the icing is totally solid. Like I can touch it and it doesn't come off. And then what you can do is start with this base color. And then just like we did earlier, we're gonna pipe on top. And I forgot to do my little center, so I'm gonna do it there before I forget. So basically what it's gonna do is, can you see that how it's like on top? It's like an extra layer of cookie design. But you only wanna do this after your flooded cookie has dried.
Will that take less than an hour?
Yeah, I would say that, so like these marble cookies that we did at the beginning, mine's already dried. So I would say like maybe 45 minutes to an hour. You can also, by the way, pipe on top of these and they look super pretty too. So you could do like I'll come back to that cookie, but like, I don't know, this one's giving me like Moana vibes, you know what I mean? So like we could do like a little swirly. And then again, if you're gonna put your sprinkles, this is the time. So sprinkle, sprinkle, dump, dump, dump. There we go.
Very nice.
Okay, but let's go back and finish this one because we want to make sure that our snowflake looks finished. So the more you do this, the more advanced you can get. And the more comfortable you get, the smaller pastry tip you can use, which results in those like really intricate cookies. Now, I'm not an artist, I'm a scientist. And so my art skills are just not as fine as I would like them to be. So the more you practice, the better you get at something like this.
Still looks great.
Thank you. And again, why don't we do, let's see. That's like America snowflake a little bit. And we'll do some, tweezers. So I do like these, especially for these like little pearl guys, because they're hard to pick up and place, but you can do it with tweezers like kind of easily. So if you have any of these sprinkles that are like kind of big like this is a really easy way to place what you want, like where you want it. Okay. And so that is our last cookie design that we're going to go over today. So I know that this was a very quick cookie decorating seminar. We are recording it. So we will certainly send out the video of all of our cookie techniques for you guys to view. I hope that you enjoyed this fast-paced yet very informative cookie decorating workshop. And I'll stick around for a minute if you guys have any questions. But happy decorating. Take these techniques, all your frostings, all your sprinkles, and keep decorating.